So Brian, let's talk a little bit more about C Sharp. So before we talked about some of the high level stuff. Now, one of the most, if not the most common implementations of the language is that the C Sharp code doesn't compile into machine or native machine language like we've been working with before. It compiles into an intermediate code or a form of bytecode just like Java does.
This is also known as the Common Intermediate Language, but it's effectively the same as Java, where Java runs on a Java virtual machine. C Sharp runs on a .NET runtime environment.
And that's called the Common Language Runtime.
Even though you can technically compile the code down to machine code, it's generally not implemented that way.
Mm-hmm.
And this common language runtime runs over top of a framework layer, which is usually referred to as the common language infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And so that infrastructure is sort of the way that it moves that interpreted code most effectively and kind of does other things like memory management and so on.
Mm-hmm. And it also uses a concept called just-in-time compilation, which means that the bytecode is converted into machine code right before it's executed. So that's what that just-in-time compilation concept comes in. And really, technically, Java does the same kind of thing, so you're already familiar with this kind of execution already.
So they totally ripped them off.
Oh yeah, this was a complete ripoff.
This is no different from what Microsoft does best, which is wait for somebody to come up with an idea
and steal it,
and then steal it. Right?
They didn't even buy them out; they just stole it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like Brian said, technically C# can be compiled into native machine code, just like we did in C, C++. However, it is very, very uncommon to see that. And also, despite the fact that this is a Microsoft product, C# is legitimately recognized as a standard language.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's why you'll also see offshoots of it for other platforms like Mac or Linux with Mono in the .NET framework ported. Although it was originally made for Windows, the .NET framework also ports to other platforms as well.
Right, and the .NET framework is, and we'll talk about this later, but it's so massive and so useful, similar to Java's libraries that it comes with. That it's almost
except for 1,000 times better than Java's libraries.
Yeah, it's true. But it's almost inseparable from the usefulness of the language is the usefulness of the .NET framework. So when this language appears someplace like in Mono and Linux, it was almost required to port the .NET framework over to Linux because its usefulness would have just been made it almost irrelevant.
Well, and also, in order for it to have been an ISO standard language, that was part of the deal, I believe, that the .NET framework had to port, or else they weren't going to give them that status.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So where does the name come from, Brian?
Well, in music, you have flat notes and sharp notes. So, like, for example, on a piano, you have the black notes and the white notes. The black
Ebony and ivory, as Paul McCartney would say.
Ebony and ivory. So
live together in perfect harmony.
So the black note to the left of a key is the flat note, which is down a tone, and the black key to the right of a white key is the sharp note with the pound symbol.
Yep, slightly higher pitch.
Slightly higher pitch. So the C# was chosen because instead of C++, which was
one better than
C plus 1, this is basically one tone better than C. So again, Microsoft is really good at stealing stuff from people.
Yeah, so it has the same symbolic meaning that C++ had.